And then last but not least, we have Nick. So Nick, if you want to go through your presentation, we should be on the next slide. You got
Awesome. Uh, Thank you so much for having me. That was amazing. I don't know how I can compete with the pizza party that's
it.
happening on May 1st.
We actually
Yeah.
have pizza coming here, so we'll ship you a slice.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
I'm very close. I am here in Brooklyn, so this is wonderful.
Oh, I was sick. I was sick.
Quick question. I'm not able to control this myself, right? This is just
No, I'll be
all good.
flipping through, but I'll get a
Cool.
cue when
We
they're.
got this. Yeah. Hi, so that's me, Nick Pollack. The founder of Pitcher List. It's a baseball media company. We also do analytics as well. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody for inviting me today. Bobby Marks next week is gonna be amazing too, so make sure you show up for that. That sounds amazing. But yeah, thanks so much for having me today. And just a quick background on me. I used to pitch at Brandeis University. I founded this site in 2014. It was Pitcher Gifts back then. I've since written for Washington Post, a member of Fangraphs. I was doing a thing on TV for MSG Network in 2019 for a few months as well, and I've created the stat CSW percentage, as well as our new pitch quantifier PLV, which stands for pitch list value. And yes, I am a Yankee fan. I'm born and raised here, so I want to be happy in life, and I'm so sorry for all of you who are Mets fans. I know many Fordham grads are Mets fans, and let me just tell you, you are our little brother. We want you to succeed, okay? But we don't know if you're going to get there, but we want you to. So good luck. We're all rooting for you. That's a little bit about me. And really, the most important thing though is that I love pitching. This is just I feel so fortunate that I get to talk about this one thing, and it's so wonderful. It's the most human sport to me. Is pitching itself. It's a ton of failure, but the success is what makes the entire thing work. And I don't care about hitters; they're just cardboard cutouts to serve my purpose. I don't even really care about relievers because they're just failed starters. It's all about starting pitchers and being able to do what you want to do and win the mind game that you are always given the opportunity to win. So that's really the heart and soul of what what I do and who I am in the baseball sphere. And how I started this was I had a job running a WordPress site back in 2011. I learned the basics of WordPress. I was a psych major and computer science minor, and so I understood how WordPress worked. So I started that in 2014 just because whatever, I had time, I was going to start a gift database. And I was fortunate to find a niche of starting pitching. I see everyone else in the industry, they have to do multiple sports. And inside of baseball, they need to talk about every single position. They need to talk about all of this stuff. And all I do is I find the one thing that I like the most, and I spend all my time on that. And it's so important that whatever you end up doing in this, be the best possible at one thing, as this is a world of specialization. And if you're good at that one thing that people need, then that's it. It doesn't matter what else that you are good at. They'll find someone else to do that thing. Find the one element that you are just so passionate about, you want to do, and lean into that. I'm so fortunate that this niche of starting pitching hadn't been totally covered by the market yet, so I was able to slide into that. I then didn't stop. I wrote the SP Roundup, which is a review of every single starting pitcher that day. Every single night, I still do that in season. And it's such an important part of whatever you do. Make sure that it's just a routine that you are constantly doing and you keep it moving forward. It's the only way to develop any skill, to have any sort of placement in any of these fields. You have to constantly be doing it. I interacted a ton on Twitter with GIFs, and I'm super fortunate that it was at a time where everyone was afraid of making GIFs at the time, before Pitching Ninja, believe it or not. And that allowed me to get some sort of following on Twitter that I've since done different things on. I also asked questions, and what I mean by that is not just to everyone else in the field, because every single person has that question at one point in their life, whatever it is that you don't know, someone else has not known that too, and they asked that question and got the answer. But also, I asked questions about the game of baseball, and I realized that so many are still not answered. And I was really fortunate to be at a point where we were starting to get this really cool data, and no one had asked questions about them and really thought about them outside of just, this is the data, that's all we have. And to challenge it conceptually was something that I was really fortunate that I was able to do at a time when not many people were. And of course, I found the right people. Pitcher List is built by strangers, I say constantly. But we also, one of our early mission statements was be the anti-Barstool Sports. And now our mission statement is baseball for all. And what that really means is I'm so lucky to work with people who I respect and share that passion. And I feel in every way that I don't have to work with someone that I don't like, because if you find yourself stuck where you feel you are dependent on someone that you don't want to be dependent on, then you know what? Maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. And I feel so fortunate that everyone here on staff is someone that I do want to work with and I want to see grow independently, regardless of the company itself. So the fantasy baseball community and the baseball community at large is just an amazing place, and I'm so lucky to have found those people. There is one other element, though, and that's on the next slide, that I can't emphasize enough. I was so lucky. I have survivorship bias in many ways. I had the privilege to have a job running a website that I get essentially a basic UBI for, and that meant that as I made Pitcher List, I haven't had to take a full-time salary from it. I could at any moment. However, that would stint the growth of Pitcher List, and especially in the early days, I didn't need revenue from it. Instead, everything that we raised from it, I just poured back into the site and was able to constantly reinvest. I also am fortunate to have a 2-bedroom apartment that is rent stabilized here in Brooklyn. I have all this extra experience. I'm able to spend all the time and merge it into one thing. And I can't emphasize enough how fortunate that is. It is not common. It is not just the bootstraps for myself. I've been given a lot of opportunity of not being debt. I am debt free, all that kind of stuff that has allowed me to do this. So it's important to understand your situation and know that comparison is the thief of joy. And me being able to do this is a product of so much circumstance and so many random things along the way, which of course is the next slide. See, I have segues. This is good. Okay, so along the way, we've actually created baseball metrics. And this is the fun part to me. This is what I was talking about with asking the questions. So I created CSW, which was for us one of the moments of people actually cared about our analytics stance. We weren't just another fantasy baseball blog or something. We were actually using the data that was public and doing something that hadn't been done before. And this was because Baseball Savant has an amazing thing called the game feed, which I think a lot of people know about now, that showcases the live data as it comes in for every baseball game. But back in 2015, 17, that was still such a small corner of the internet. There's so many people. It was a whispered place. And I, writing this article every single night, noticed that the guys who normally got whiffs, well, they got called strikes tonight. And I shouldn't really ding them for that, because the only reason they didn't get whiffs is because the batters just didn't swing. It wasn't like they weren't throwing strikes or something. Like, it's the same result. It's a strike, but the batters just weren't swinging this time. Why should I say that's bad? Because all we cared about was swing strike rate. So I just, in my head, combined the two. I was like, oh yeah, well, if it's around 30%, then it means I was fine. And if it goes above, it's much better. And then my colleague Alex Fast, who now is the director of content at MLB, which is just the greatest thing ever. He sent me a starry-eyed email knowing absolutely nothing in 2016 about the industry, and now he's smarter than me in so many ways because he asked questions. He said, hey, Nick, I think this is a good thing. You should probably do some more research on it. And I said, yeah, whatever. So we put out an article in 2019 that then won an FSWA award, and now this stat is used in organizations everywhere. It's on Baseball Savant and all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of fell into it, and that's going to go into something that I'm going to mention in 2 slides. But we also have these bigger stats now from CSW. We started really thinking about pitch level data and really how granular you can get and ways to reframe it. And some fun ones are ICR rate, which is on contact. Instead of just caring about barrel rate or hard hit rate, we realize that there's a bevy of contact that is made by a hitter that is beneficial to them, including streaming line drives or just solid contact or flares that have higher wOBAs. So we decided to combine it all into one called ideal contact rate. And we actually have found that this is one of the best correlations to hit rate year to year, which is incredible because we generally just don't have that. We just say BABIP, but it's not BABIP. It's actually ICR rate. And the next note of that is, well, what then generates, or what is the best correlation to whip? It's not whip itself, it's actually strike minus ICR rate, which essentially says when you are a pitcher, you throw strikes. That is the best thing you can do, right? Well, it is, unless you allow a home run off of it, or if you allow good contact. So we said, well, fine. The best pitchers are the ones that get a ton of strikes and then don't allow that bad contact. It's such a simple concept, and yet this doesn't exist anywhere except on our site now. So we found that this actually correlates better to next season's whip than whip itself, which is just, oh, that's so cool. It makes sense. Strikes are the walk component of whip, and then ICR is a hit component. You combine them together, bam, it works. We also started to do something called high lock and low lock. It's really just taking the strike zone and saying, well, how often does he throw it upstairs and how often does he throw it downstairs? We're about to add down and glove side, like the actual quadrants for things like breaking balls, and also high and tight, or high middle and tight for sinkers, stuff like that. But we've never really done it as a percentage. It always bothered me. Like, you see heat map, and that's what we use. We don't just use the percentages. And why don't we use the percentages? What the heck? It's so much easier to quickly look at this. There's also plus percentage, which essentially says anytime you throw a pitch, how many of those pitches are a positive outcome for the pitcher. It's not that it doesn't correlate that well. It is, honestly, if you have a high plus percentage, you generally are a good pitcher. There is that correlation. It's not sticky enough for us to say that this is a stat you should be using all the time, but it is a really fun way to quickly look and be like, oh yeah, cool, this has been a very effective pitch. And to me, it's a much better metric of a pitch than, say, WOBA or batting average allowed. Anything that is a result stat of an event is not a good metric for a pitch, because you throw lots of pitches that don't end in at bat, or plate appearance, I should say. You're going to throw curveballs like Tyler Glasnow's, not in 3-ball counts. So WOBA inherently is not going to include walks in there. There are going to be no walks, so that's not going to be a part of it. And he also throws it out of the zone a ton. So if there is contact, that's not going to be a good thing for the hitter. So then you're talking about WOBA being just strikeouts for the most part, or the rare times that they actually get a hit off of it. So that's going to be a very low WOBA, even though that isn't necessarily the best grade of that pitch, because let's say it's a 50% strike rate. That's half the time it's a ball. That's not necessarily a good pitch. So using plus percentage does highlight the fact of how often is this a good thing for the pitcher. And it's kind of like strike minus ICR rate, but this is more of a just blanket, what was the actual result, as opposed to maybe the expected or the deserved result that is more strike minus ICR rate. And then lastly, there's our PLV stuff, which is, I think, the next wave of baseball analytics. And not necessarily PLV. We like ours, but I think you're going to start seeing this stuff a lot more from a lot more people, which is saying you have the timeline of an event, and at the end of it, it's a home run. Before then, we called it a fly ball. And then before then, we said launch angle is this and exit velocity is that. And that's where we stopped, because before that, it's the batter does something. We give him a grade, and we can't do that if we don't know the quality of the pitch. And we have these two variables of the pitch itself. Is this a meatball that they're hitting, or is it a 105 mile per hour Jordan Hicks sinker in the zone? And without that variable, we can't say how well the batter performed to get that kind of contact. However, using PLV, which essentially just creates all of the things that would make a good pitch, and we run through all the machine learning models and what is XGBoost and GAN models? I can't remember. I don't know. I have smart people that do this for me. Kyle Bland. Thank you so much, Kyle. But doing that allows us to then make this simple algebra. Once we have the metric assigned for the pitch quality, then we can actually talk about the hitter. You took a good pitch and you should have swung at that. Or you were making contact on pitches that should make contact or not, right? And that all of a sudden becomes a really fun thing. We can say pitches that deserve to be hits inside the zone. That's what mistake rate is. That's double the chance of being a hit. Hit luck, where we say across an at bat, should you have allowed a hit or not? And it essentially goes to 1 or not. And what's so beautiful about hit luck is that the league average is 0. We actually we made this happen. And yes, the hit luck is 0 in the middle. So that's better than BABIP. But we can actually say, well, maybe you deserve a high BABIP because you throw terrible pitches, or you throw pitches that are going to return pop outs and whatnot. That should be a low BABIP. We can actually say that through PLV now. And lastly, of course, we have another one, hitter performance, which says, great, now we can judge the number of how good you are as a hitter based on the quality of pitches you saw, not just the strength of the opponent, but we can say, just in general of the team, we can say, look, maybe you faced Spencer Strider, but you happen to get the fastballs that were down the middle, the mistake slider. It's so important for us to know how you are performing as a hitter, what the expected result is, and then the result you actually earned. It's a really fun thing. So those are some of the metrics that we've been working on. There are more that I could talk about for a long time, but those are some of the bigger ones, and the really fun ones. And through the years, this is, I think, the thing that I hopefully can help with you the most, that I think is a very fun topic that I don't get to enough. These are the kind of things across 10 years in the industry that I've really picked up on and kind of shifted how I think. I initially came from this from the eye test of being, I pitched in college. Also, what I didn't mention there, I was a travel baseball coach and gave pitching lessons. And I created pitcher gifts before pitcher lists because I want people to visualize it. I want people to see the players and understand a different story of how they get the results before we had such granular pitch data. We just had this shallow ERA and whip and strikeout rate. And I felt watching it, you can understand if that strikeout rate is real or not. However, I got all this data now. I'm like, well, okay, cool. They are just these numbers. And the thing is, players are humans, not numbers. And you have to so often in this industry realize that just because they got these results and deserve those results does not mean that they will deserve those results the next time. And understanding the skills and qualities of that human is more important at times than just the blanket numbers. So that's how I go about this a ton. The data can be amazing. It can also be really bad. There's a famous quote of, you look at numbers long enough, you torture the numbers long enough and they'll tell you whatever you want. So data is an incredible tool. However, there is so much nuance in data that we often do these broad strokes of correlations and associations without understanding that there are buckets, there are elements of extremes, there are outliers and why those exist. There are so many things to go wrong with data that use it as a starting point of intrigue, but don't lean on it as just, well, the numbers say this and that's that. It can be so fun and easy to do that, but you have to understand that these are humans. There was a fantastic story from talking about spring training when they brought in this new guy. He was a big baseball analytics dude, and he had this whole thing about rounding first base and saying that we're rounding first base wrong. We can turn more singles into doubles if we attack the angle at first base just a little stronger, and we do this. And the first day, he's trying to get all these veterans and all these players at home plate to run to first and be sharper with it. And here's Jed Lowry, who has had knee injuries in his past. He does it, and it's too sharp. It's too difficult on the knees and the body for him to do this with any sort of consistency. And he does it once and looks at the guy and goes, nope, there's no way I'm doing that. And he walks off the field. And shortly after, the entire team does. And to me, that's a lesson of that guy maybe was right. And maybe there are some moments where, yes, players should be more sharp at first base. But to then say this is the best way to do it, put a blanket statement out there because the data says that you'll win maybe 1.5 more games doing this, is wrong. And you have to understand the nuance of every situation and to be able to serve all the data that you have the correct way to actually make those improvements. Public baseball analytics is still super young. There are so many things that we still don't have access to, and it drives me up the wall. We don't have like AA StatCast data constantly. We're just getting in limb data, for example. And over the years, we've slowly been getting a drip feed of all these things. And there are so many things that are the new hotness. And we're still learning so much. We're finding things that are much better than they used to be. And it's really important for us to change on a dime and constantly learn, but also understand that because it's in adolescence, there's still so much opportunity. And that's the thing I learned most with CSW was I just assumed that people were doing this already. And they weren't. No one cared. I actually have a firm belief that baseball is this really weird place where you have two sects of people. You have the athletes who, the majority of which, not all, trust me, as an athlete myself, who just like, no, see ball, hit ball. I don't want to think about this. I don't want to think about analytics. I don't want to think about anything like that. This is all about that stuff. And I don't want to be creative or anything like that. Then you also have another side of people that I meet inside the industry who are very much of the logical and by process. And they say, cool, this is the thing that exists. Thus, I'm going to learn that and make that as good as it can be. And I don't think baseball actually appeals to the artistic, creative types. And that makes a ton of sense, which means that there's so much opportunity. There are fewer people than you'd expect that are challenging baseball, that are challenging ideas and pushing it in the right direction. And you'd be very surprised how few of us there are that actually look at this and think, how do we think about this differently, and understand the building blocks and try to expand how we craft and how we think about the game with so much data at our fingertips to really have our own sandbox. And it's still unbelievably young, which is wonderful. We've also learned that MLB teams aren't always right. And there's this assumption, well, there's only 30 of them, and clearly they must spend all this money advancing this and are doing all the right things and are making the right choices. Absolutely not. Some are. Some are also listening to just one person who's then directing it, who maybe isn't making the right choices. And there are also other crews, and you guys probably know who those are, who just don't care, and they have their own archaic systems, and they just say, whatever, this is a for-profit business, and I'm making money right now, and I don't want to spend another dime on analytics. So once again, there is a ton of opportunity, and it makes it just so much more fun to do this. But really, I can't say it enough, ask questions. And oh man, you'd be so surprised how many of us just want to talk about this thing. If you ask the right questions to people and you don't know, we will always help you out as much as we possibly can. So don't ever hesitate to do so. And what I also really do mean is ask questions about the game. Find things that don't have answers. Say, that is weird, and go down the journey and ask questions. Why is this working? Why is that good? Challenge just general conceptions of things. There's so much to discover there. There was one thing that I really want to lean into, and that's the next slide. It's concepts right now are more valuable than skills. And what I mean by that is, on the outside over here, this is a moment where there are a lot of people who do know how to run models and know how to just to do the process. But what lacks are concepts and people who are able to take an idea and run with it. That is truly the market inefficiency. And if you try to challenge yourself as much as you can for every data point, really look at how we talk about every element of the game and break it down to its simplest parts and core ideas, you will find that there are some really fun journeys you can go down, really fun paths. The one on foul balls, I think, is so fun. And it's also a finite game where there are only so many pitch types. There are only so many ways that they can throw it and place it. And yet we haven't explored all of it yet. How should we tackle sequencing? What are this variable and that variable? How would they impact it? And the more that you understand the concept of baseball outside of the numbers, the game itself and how it's played and how it's gone about, the better you are to be in a situation where you can challenge those concepts and have some fun things to do with the data that isn't just creating a new xwOBA. That isn't just saying, well, FIP isn't good, and let me create a new ERA indicator, because then you'll realize that an ERA indicator is just, there's so much ridiculousness that goes into that. And that's not really the thing that you should be asking. So when it comes to ERA, there's so many variables, so don't go into that. But yeah, let's go on to the next slide. And really, the last thing I do want to talk about is, if I were in your shoes now, if I were kind of like, all right, I love baseball, I love analytics, how do I make this more of a serious thing? You need to know about pitch models. It is, if you're not learning about it, if you're not doing it, you're behind. Organizations are learning this now. Every good one has their own internal one. Everything I talked about with swing decisions and contact ability and all that kind of stuff, every team has it. Every team, well, I don't want to say that every team has a good one, but they have one. And you have to start thinking about it this way because this is how we can frame things. Then if I wanted to get the attention of any sort of publication, any sort of organization, I would then create some sort of Substack or Medium where then I can showcase work that I've done. Emulate the people that you respect the most. Part of the job is quant stuff, but honestly, one of the most important one that's overlooked is your quality of writing. No one wants to read things that are not enjoyable. Even people in organizations, you can show up an interesting point, but if you're not able to articulate it well, they won't want to hire you because your job will be to articulate it well. It's there is the skill of the knowledge, but there is a greater skill of the communication. And if you can say, look, your fastball could be so much better if it's located here, and you give a number for that. You say you're going to get a lot more whiffs and fewer home runs if you throw it consistently over here. And that is a very translatable thing. And if you then have that concept, you can say, hey, have you thought about throwing it here? Instead of saying, hey, look, Joe Ryan, this is me who has been just behind a computer for 5 years. I'm going to tell you to do this. He's going to brush you off. I'm like, well, you don't play the game, man. Like, you don't know what it is. You have to go halfway with them and present information in a way that is a suggestion and a conversation and talking about if this would be a good thing or not. Hey, here's some extra information I have. The big thing against analytics is that it's trying to dictate players without knowing all the nuance, and instead bring it as, okay, cool, there's all this nuance that I might not know. Would you like some extra information that might help you dissect the nuance? And I'd love to talk to you about it because I'm sure I'm missing something. That kind of communication is everything. And inside of your articles and how you write, make them suggestions, interesting things that you're exploring, and ensure that you're writing in a way that has a melody and not just, here's the thing, and then this, here's a stat, here's a stat. So important. Also, quality is bigger than quantity. And this is about the quality of the piece. You got to have a good piece with it. I know that I'm like 30 minutes in. I'm so sorry. I thought it was going to be 15 or whatever. This is just make sure it's a good piece, right? You're going to put out things that aren't your best, and that's fine. Don't let it be like the most perfect thing, but ensure that what you're putting out is actually something that is different. There's no point to me of putting out a piece that's been covered by other places again, unless you're doing the practice of the writing, and then that's fine. But you're not going to, I'll put it this way, you will get noticed very quickly if you put out something that is novel, that is written well, and has charts and graphs that look good. I cannot tell you enough. No one wants to look at a baseball savant slider. No one wants to look at a baseball savant chart. Just have some sort of design instincts. And it's actually really easy. There's so many resources for good UI, UX. Take a moment and learn that, because again, your job is communication. You are communicating this information in the best way for people to receive it. You can know the perfect answer, but if they are not listening to that, then you've failed at your job. So that includes your presentations and how it looks on these articles. And yeah, answer questions that don't have an answer. Work it on Twitter. Reply to people that you think would find this interesting with a chart that you have from your stuff. Get involved in it. That's where baseball Twitter lives. And then be an entertainer. Honestly, that goes back to the communication thing. You are going to have to be someone that presents things. So try as hard as you can to figure out cadence and how you look and how you present and everything that goes into it. It will allow you to be so much more successful. Understand how to communicate with people, and just be as enjoyable as possible, and you'd be surprised how far that'll take you. Okay, sorry, 30 minutes, not 15. I apologize, Chris, but I hope that was helpful.
No, all I can say, I know I enjoyed it. I don't know about the rest of the crowd, but I'm sure they did too. Yeah, you definitely brought a different kind of element to a guest speaker, I would say, and we were really appreciative of just some of the content and some of like your knowledge, like, right? That's why we're bringing you like a guest speaker like you onto the table. That's why we reached out to you. And you know, our former president, like, can't speak highly enough of you. He says he's this your podcast all the time. So, yeah, no, that was awesome. And we do have a bunch of questions for you, but before we get into it, can someone pass out the pizza before it gets cold? If someone could
I should
handle
have
that.
ordered one myself here just to fit in.
Yeah. um yeah, but you were incredible. So thank you for sharing with that. We do have a little less or a little more than 10 minutes left. So just to dive in, we got so just to like show we got some people going up. So yeah, you were awesome. So thank you. So to go a little deeper into it, you obviously mentioned your journey. You know, so we won't have to go to that. But just like from the start of the MLB season, now after all explaining, you know, your product and you know what kind of metrics you guys work with, um, just share your early impressions of just the MLB season, you know, maybe some trends you noticed about like what pitchers are doing, you know, some of their approaches, maybe different you know, previous years and you know, something you guys are making note of, at least on your own pitcher
Oh
list.
man. I Phew. I don't know if you guys really remember 5 years ago, but when we saw someone go underneath 50% fastballs, we stopped everything. We're like, what? No way. And now that's just becoming a regularity. I rarely do see pitchers. I'd say the majority of them throw more than 50% secondaries now. And I love it. It's the way to go. It should have been a thing for ages. That is just getting embraced more and more. There's obviously the whole thing about, you know, pitcher injuries and all of that. And that's going to be a problem for a long time. And I have no idea how that's really going to be resolved, but we just kind of got to get used to it. And I was saying this a lot in the preseason. I think that Martin Perez and Tyler Anderson, and there were so many other guys, Joe Ross, Paul Blackburn. These guys are showing that that command is the market inefficiency. These are guys who are going 6+ innings, and at a time where we on this side were like, oh man, strikeouts, velocity, okay. Those guys are going 5 innings. And I think some clubs are being smart about this and realizing, well, if we have a guy who sure he doesn't get as many strikeouts, but like, I don't know, Javier Assad just went 6 innings. That's absurd. And that is starting to, I think there will be a trend back toward command focused guys. And the problem here is how do you teach command? And that's always the hardest thing. How do you teach command that isn't max effort? Hopefully that's where we go with it, but it's pretty cool to see some of those guys still showcase that that is a major, major, major part of pitching today.
Absolutely, and that's a great point. You know, we see these guys with super talented arms, but can't last even in the season sometimes. So that goes to my follow-up question. You know, thoughts on the rapid increase of the pitching injuries, right? The arm injuries we have. Is the pitch clock a factor into that? You know, what do you think are the what do you think from all of the data on Twitter and all the people
Sure.
that want to make narratives about this? What do you think is really the reason?
Well, I think the reason is that people are on Twitter and we all take them seriously. No, pitch clock is not the problem. And for a quick, easy answer to why, I the UCL and UCL injuries, that is actually Tommy John surgeries, minor leagues and majors, have been trending up since 2004, but massively. Like it's such an obvious trend. And before the pitch clock was introduced, we had the highest that we've had. It's not a thing of all of a sudden the pitch clock is just accentuating it. It's the same chart. Also, I do want to note the ones who pitched quickly and would be fine with the pitch clock now, say like 10 years ago, were your veterans. Were the ones who were not high electric stuff guys. Mark Burley was like the fastest dude. And it's not about that. It's about max effort. That is the problem. I personally hope that you're going to start seeing scouts for colleges and even high schools not grading, not focusing on players who haven't shown durability. And I think that you're getting to a point, it's a crazy theory, but whatever, I'm going to do it. Is you're having a pool of so many players that are now throwing 96 plus, right? And we're going to get to a moment where we have so many of them and we'll be able to weed out those who do not have the ability to stay healthy. Those exist. Justin Verlander did it for ages. Nolan Ryan did it. Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, Aroldis Chapman right now. These guys are throwing hard and they're doing it for a long time without getting Tommy John. So there's clearly something and some ability that is there. And now that we're going to have a growing sample every single year of this, I do wonder if teams are going to, or just in general, college scouts or all that, are going to favor the tools that allow you to actually go longer. So they're going to be pushing them more and more, and then eventually we just weed out the ones who actually are durable. I don't know. It's a problem. And until we de-incentivize velocity, because that's the biggest correlation, we're going to have all these pitching injuries still. So I don't have a great answer, but the good news is that means that I will still have a job because I will help you find the next starting pitcher to go get instead when they are injured. So at least I've got that going for me.
Yeah, no, that's a great point because a lot of people want to create that narrative without actually, asking, the actual UCL and like the elbow aspect of it. So it's a really good answer and definitely learn something from that. And then so you also mentioned command versus velocity. And then just thoughts on like, this is a question from one of our E1 members. Who do you think are the most overrated pitchers in the league and the most underrated pitchers in the league are? And you probably have talked about it countlessly on your podcast and your blogs, but I'm just curious, like, who comes to mind? Maybe we can start this year.
This is interesting. So, I mean, underrated as in a grouping, as in like a type of player, or like I would say the underrated are those command veterans.
Yeah.
They just don't get enough love for it, and I've been trying so hard to find that stat. I think strike minus ICR rate is the closest I'm going to get to showcasing, hey, can you throw strikes and not allow hard contact? Like,
yeah,
that should be pretty good. I know that like Kyle Hendricks gets all the love for being that poster child, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of someone who's just consistently been that and deserves more attention for it. I guess like Marcus Stroman, honestly.
Oh man, we got a lot of Yankee fans in here that love that. We got a lot of smiles on that.
It's kind of wild. But I mean, it's also hard for me to distinguish between the fantasy realm and the real world realm. I think there are a lot of young arms who do not have good command, who have amazing stuff and get overvalued because of that. Dylan Cease, I think, is overvalued, for example.
We had one person that
he's not
number 8. He's enthusiastic about that take.
He had one really, really amazing first half, and we've been chasing that for a while, and he's volatile. And I'm not saying he's not a good pitcher. Every team should be happy to have Dylan Cease, but he gets treated in conversations a lot like a top 15 pitcher in the majors, and that's just not the case. You have to be able to locate better, and you have to have a better number 3 pitch than what he has, which is a very, very unreliable curveball. So that's my answer.
Cool. All right. I just want to make sure I'll get to your question real quick. I want to make sure we don't have any. Yeah, I think we're good on the question. What's up?
Can you hear me on this?
You can hear?
So like when you're looking at whether it be young pitchers like a Cole Reagans, who's just like a bullpen arm in Texas, and that was like the ace of the Royals, or like an Ian Hamilton or any Rays pitcher, to be honest. Like, what predictive metrics are you looking at that like maybe other teams aren't valuing that these teams can see in like a younger player reviving a career?
Yeah, that's a that's a very good question. I think if you have the perfect answer for that, then you'll be on an organization tomorrow. So for the example of Cole Reagans, I think that's actually a really good one because it's all nuanced. And it goes back to the thing on the other sides is that these players are humans, right? They're not just numbers. So if you look at Cole Reagans on the Rangers, he was throwing 92 in the fall of 2022. He was a former, like, I think it was a first rounder, and he gone through Tommy John and then had to get it repaired. So essentially 1.5 Tommy Johns. And he went to Tread Athletics and all of a sudden improved his velocity massively, essentially, like with his pelvic load and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter how, he's all of a sudden there doing that. But the Rangers didn't have a situation for him. They didn't have an opening in the rotation. He was the guy. He had, I think, one game where he came into relief for 4 innings, and he showcased that he was throwing 96, but he didn't have a full repertoire yet. He didn't have a slider yet because he struggled against lefties. So he gets traded because the Royals see, oh, okay, this guy's throwing hard, and he was his former first-round pick. Let's just take a shot on this guy because they want Aroldis Chapman from us. So the Royals then go say, sure, whatever, let's just see. And Reagans thinks, I should probably get a slider. Tread's like, yeah, you should probably get a slider. He goes to the Royals and say, hey, is it okay if I learn a slider? They go, sure, whatever, we don't care. So he goes and learns a slider. It just happens to be fantastic. And then he comes back after Ryan Yarbrough gets traded and suddenly has this absurd full repertoire. And he never got an opportunity to show what he learned in a big way. He actually was the talk of the town in spring training in March 2023 inside of Texas. He just didn't get any opportunities. So the Royals kind of lucked out there. And I would not say that the Royals saw something that other teams didn't. They got a guy that found all of a sudden another pitch who had this massive jump in velocity. And I'll be honest with you, if you can find a player on an organization right now who has a changeup, a curve, a cutter, and a fastball that they nibble with effectively, and those 96, and he's just missing a slider, like, yeah, that's probably the indicator, right? There are a lot more metrics when it comes to like fastballs now that we know of, like what makes good shape, and I think some teams are more reluctant to lean into it. And what I mean by that is induced vertical break, which is how much it rises up, or at least denies falling with backspin. There's it's flat arm angle, which is VAA, vertical approach angle, but really the one you want is height adjusted vertical approach angle, because that essentially says what is the angle of the ball if it were down the middle. And if you have a flatter approach, that is, you have a lower release point that goes up, then it spends less time in the bat path of how to hit that ball. But if you are steep, you're actually going to be in the bat path at the top of the zone. So you want a very flat four-seamer upstairs. And then, of course, how much extension you get as well. So those are aspects that more organizations are starting to look into more and embrace. The Dodgers oddly aren't enough yet, and it drives me up the wall. But the Rays are, and that's why they got Ryan Pepio. And now you're seeing Ryan Pepio, instead of throwing low fastballs like he did with the Dodgers, he's throwing them upstairs, and he just had this ridiculously good game against the Rockies doing that because his fastball works there. So those are some of the things that we're learning now that some organizations are jumping into. But predictive metrics are a dangerous game. And the short answer to this already very long question is understand the nuance of the individual pitches. It's the thing that got me going in 2015 when I learned about that from Eno Saris, is that if you look at the granular pitches themselves, and instead of seeing the swing strike rate for a pitcher overall, you say, well, his slider does that, but we don't really think that slider is going to stick around. Or, well, he's throwing this really low swing strike rate pitch, and if he throws another one more, then he's going to get more swinging strikes, and that's a good thing. And understanding the actual mold of a pitcher's repertoire will allow you to understand their ceilings and their floors much, much better than just the overarching predictive numbers.
That was a great question. Without further ado, if you have one question,
It's not pitching related, but it's just like who's your pick to win the World Series?
Wait, say that one more time.
World Series pick.
Who's your
Oh man. Do you want a fun one, or do you want, like, I mean, the Dodgers and Atlanta are ridiculously good. I'll be honest with you, I have a soft spot for the Orioles right now. I mean, if you look, I'm a Yankee fan, but I also am a baseball fan. And if you look at the Orioles and don't consider them one of the most fun teams in the majors, something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Let your emotions of your loyalty go to the side for a moment. Understand that, yes, you want the Yankees to win the World Series. I do too. But dang, that's a fun team, man. I wish Adley Rutschman was my catcher. Okay. All
We
right.
also we have a Red Sox fan agreeing with that. So
I mean, the
Red
Red
Sox
Sox
fan agreeing
rotation,
with
there's your
that.
underrated
Oh,
pitchers.
the
The entire staff is great.
not the Sox.
Yeah. Okay.
The Orioles are my World Series pick right now.
Love that. Love that. And then who's your Cy Young pick on in each?
Well, of course it's Cole Reagans. Duh. Second place. I mean, honestly, tied for first, it's Pablo Lopez and Cole Reagans. And then in the National League, I so badly want it to be Jared Jones having a Spencer Strider season. But I'm gonna go with oh man, I'm just like thinking of the list and like who's killing it right now that I feel good about. I mean, okay, Tyler Glasnow, please just give me 150, 60 innings.
Yeah.
Please just do it. That'd be so great. He's not going to, but that would be so good.
We have some head shakes for that one. So
He's not gonna do it. I know he's not.
yeah,
I just want him to. Otherwise,
that would be
Miller,
fun.
just figure it out, please.
That would be fun.
Dark horse, Shota Imanaga.
Yeah. Okay.
Paul Skeens.
Paul Skeens.
Nah, he's not gonna get enough innings, but I love
Yeah,
that
he
one.
probably will.
Jackson Jobe, by the way. Oh my gosh, Jackson Jobe. The second he shows up, oh my gosh, he's insane.
I
I
love
like
it.
him more than Skeens.
I love to hear it. All right, thank you so much. We got some people going to the Yankee game, so we don't want to hold anybody up too much longer. It's only a 20-minute commute, but yeah, we want to get some fun there. But thank you so much. The rest of the classroom right now. Thanks you guys. Thanks you for you did a great job.
Thanks for having me, everyone.
Thank you for coming out and speaking with us. We'll have some tweets up, just about some highlights that we have from the presentation today. And yeah, stay tuned for content. If you guys don't follow him, what's your Twitter account?
Yeah, it's just Pitcherless. Everything is just
Pitcherless. There it is. All right, so make sure you guys
branding.
follow. All right, Nick, thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. Thanks so much for having me.
Have a good one. Bye.